How's it going, everyone? This is Chase, and today we are going to do a movie review over Captain Marvel. And before you ask, of course, we're going to go into the controversy and we're going to talk about some of those points. And that's the whole point of this channel, is to get into controversial topics and to share viewpoints and hopefully walk away more knowledgeable people. I want to do a slight spoiler alert. I'm not going to reveal any plot points, but I am going to talk about the plot and kind of things that generally happened. So I'm just going to say that now so you're warned. But let's get right into it. One of the main controversial topics that you see on media and stuff is Brie Larson. Brie Larson said this, which, if you didn't know, Brie Larson is the Captain Marvel main character. So you see, like, she said this, she said that, and generally people like to point fingers at that and make that the reason that, this is going to be a bad movie because, she's feminist, hardcore, left, or whatever, yada yada. So personally, I'm not going to take too harsh a viewpoint of a movie based off of the actor's political view. And even then, someone's political view is their own. I don't think you should make that negatively impact the whole surroundings of a movie because you disagree with the main character's political points. So that's not much of a point for me, and I don't think it should be for anyone that's looking at it. Even if you're a hardcore Marvel fan, which I would say I'm a pretty hardcore Marvel fan, considering I've seen every movie at least 2 times, probably 3 in most cases. So I don't think that's much of a reason. Sure, I don't share kind of her hardcore. Well, I don't share her views in a lot of ways about, that white men oppress women or whatever. Not that she said that. I'm not saying that she said that, but I'm just talking about the feminist movement in general right now. I'm all for equal rights for women, of course, and I don't think anyone in America that's a rational person disagrees with having equal rights for both sexes and equal opportunity and all of that. But the feminist movement isn't pushing for that anymore. And I will get into more of that. I'm getting ahead of myself, I guess. I like to move away from the talking point of Brie Larson herself, but I think a more important point is the feminist kind of agenda that this movie sets out for, and they make it very clear that that's what they're going for. But I didn't make that a point for not seeing the movie like I know a lot of people did. I'm pretty sure that the staffing for this movie was like all female or majority, which is fine. I don't have a problem with that. But where I start to take problem is the way it affects the movie, and it definitely did affect the movie, just in terms of plot, dialogue, reasoning. Their agenda definitely started playing a role. And I wouldn't say it was an overpowering role to where it ruins the movie, but it was definitely a role that negatively impacted the movie in my mind. And we're going to get into some of the reasons there. So one of the reasons, I'll just jump right into it, I guess, is that in a lot of movies, there's conflict, obviously. Movies are bent around conflict. Well, they make it a point to show that a lot of the conflict, it's not all like there was an alien race that was a lot of the conflict throughout, but a lot of the other conflict, like interpersonal conflict that Brie Larson's going through in this movie, or Carol Danvers is her name in the story. Her interpersonal conflict has to do with how she's been oppressed by men. In my view, that's what it looks like. It's like, men telling her she can't do this, getting knocked down by men. Like, they try and make every point they can against men when it comes to her inter-conflict. And that's just not right. I mean, the world is a tough place. The world, if nature had its way, we would all be dead, 15 at 15 or 10 years old. Actually, by infancy, I guess infant mortality is the worst thing. But you know what I mean. Nature is the hardcore, nasty out there, and that nature wants to take us out, and that's how it's always been. And the only reason we have been able to live as long as we can in the modern era is because we are trying to defy nature. Now, that's usually it's usually conflict between people, or conflict between the nature of being human, or being whatever race that they want to choose. But they choose none of those things to make her interpersonal conflict like they normally do. They choose to make it about men and the patriarchy holding her down. And here's an analogy I'd like to say is, for a long time, let's just talk about the U.S. The U.S. has been, like, let's say we're a car and we're skidding. We've been skidding in the point of, or drifting, but not in a good way. We've been like drifting in the leaning towards men overpowering women. We've been kind of drifting that way. And over the past 100 years, something remarkable's happened. We have slowly but surely corrected the car from drifting, getting it straightened out on the road. We're still drifting a little bit. There's still some problems we're trying to fix, but it's not hardcore anymore. It's very, very close to fairness between men and women. And we've made that a point over the last 100 years. We've been really working towards that. There's been many movements, many positive changes in laws, and just in every way. We've been almost completely corrected in our makeshift car along that point. But movies like this just take, if you know what overcorrecting is, that's when you steer way too much in the opposite direction, and it's a good way to lose control of the car because it swings too hard in the other direction. And I feel like that's what this movie is doing, and that's what a lot of people are doing in politics, is they are hardcore turning other direction, trying to overcorrect in terms of rights and, for women. And that, in a car, results in a crash. I think it would take a lot more maybe to crash our country or something, if that's the way the analogy goes. But overcorrecting isn't going to fix the problem. It's not like you overcorrect and then you're going to be straight. No, you're going to overcorrect and then you're going to be out of control more than you were before. That's not how you fix the problem. And so that's what I think movies like this are doing, is they overcorrect for a problem that isn't that prominent anymore in society. And sure, I'm a man. You can be like, you have no right to say that. You're a man. You don't know what it's like. And I think that's BS. Anyone with two pairs of eyes and can read and can see how people are treated in today's society, I think it's very, very easy to see how equal we are all treated. And in some ways, women actually have perks in the job market. For example, I'm an engineer. I was looking to get a job, and I'm not going to say the names of any companies, but I remember I went to a school that was predominantly guys because it was engineering school, and that's kind of just the way it is. It's like 80% guys. And many people were interviewing or trying to get an interview for this one company. And this one company, it was like basically everyone at least applies to this company to try and get an interview with them. So there was, I happened to get an interview, and there's 8 others, so it was a pretty small cast of people getting interviews. Out of the 8, 4 of them were female, 2 of them were African American, 1 of them was Asian, and then 1 of them was me. And I'm a white male. And I thought that was very peculiar because our campus, if you're looking to look at like the makeup of our campus, we're probably 1%. We were probably 1% African American. I already said 20% female, and I think we were like actually 5 or 10% Asian. So I think that one was about right. But you don't see those statistics in the interview process. The company was strongly advocating for women, strongly advocating for people of color, which is fine. You know, that's their choice. They're a company; they can do whatever they want. But I'm just giving you a perspective on how women in today's era might have a little bit of a leg up. You know, if someone can get a good female engineer compared to a, you know, good male engineer, I think they're going to go female because that's just something you don't see, and it brings a different perspective to the engineering table, and that's a good thing. But I'm just giving you an example of how they might have a leg up in some respects. So so when you see, let's go back to the Captain Marvel topic. I'm pretty good at straying from the path, but Captain Marvel, you see a lot of reviews out there, and you see a lot of reviews that are 1s, or you see a lot of reviews that are 10s. And I think both are not helping. They're both the problem. They're both BS. This movie is not a 1. It's got a lot more value as a movie than a 1. But it's not a 10. There's very clear errors. There's spots where it's kind of clunky. It gets a little slow, I think, midway through the movie. It's certainly not a 10. But people like to go to the extremes immediately, and I think the moment you go to an extreme, you're part of the problem. And you know, you can have your views, but don't ever take an extreme, because right as you take an extreme, you stop listening to the other side, and that's the root of why there's so much political divisiveness right now. So don't be part of the problem. Look at it rationally. Give the side that you oppose, give them points, because they are making some points good in some respects. You know, you gotta give someone some credit where credit's due, but that doesn't mean you can't challenge. And that's what we do. We challenge. We don't just completely deny, and that's denial's far worse. All right, let's get back into more movie stuff. One thing I'm going to talk about the movie now. It had some, and I guess this will be the movie review itself. It had some good points. It had good plot points. It had a pretty good story. There's a couple of changes, plot twists, that I was actually pretty I was like, oh, that's pretty impressive. That was pretty entertaining. The acting was fairly good. Brie Larson, gosh, I want to say she's the best actor. She was alright though. She was she did her part pretty solid. Samuel L. Jackson did a good job. He played a weaker role, we all know him as a hard ass, and he kind of was he was soft, but it was early in his career. I guess you can explain that. So that's not much of a problem. One problem I did see though was Captain Marvel as a character going into Avengers Endgame. She's extremely powerful, to the point that she reminds me of Superman, and I've always strongly disliked Superman because his weakness is kryptonite. You know, they had to give him weakness, of course, but honestly, he really is just so overpowered that it's not even entertaining to watch him, because it's just he pushed the moon back into place, what are you gonna do? It's Superman. It's just, come on, stuff like that happens, and it's just you have no way of relating to the character at all. And so they kind of did that. I mean, they gave her she was underpowered throughout the story because she didn't have her memory. Didn't have her memory. But when they get into the nitty gritty of like towards the ending when she's fighting and all that and she's full power, like you're just like, jeez, she's so OP. There's just nothing that could stop her, and that makes me worry for Endgame, because when you introduce a character, you know, at the 11th hour into a massive franchise that is on its last big movie, or last Avengers, you know, final movie, and she's just OP and she's gonna jump in and save everything. Like I think they're gonna do a good job of implementing her so that she doesn't just take over the whole story. But you gotta wonder, you know, because you introduce a character like that, you know she's gonna have to play a major role, and I hope they don't take that too extreme, because no one likes someone that you can't relate to power-wise. Like Tony Stark, you know, he's just a human that uses his brain to make a suit, you know, like, so obviously his weaknesses, he's just a human that made a suit to protect him. You have the Hulk, you know, he is constantly fighting his anger, you know, and getting out of control and hurting people he loves. Black Widow had a terrible past, you know, only uses martial arts and such to take down opponents, and that's a pretty cool aspect. Thor, Thor is kind of one that's like, oh, you know, he's also OP, you know, but he's kind of reliant on whatever weapon he has. Whenever he doesn't have a weapon, he's pretty weak, and that's kind of his kryptonite, I guess. Mjolnir was destroyed, and you know he's kind of weak, so he had to build a new weapon. Got a new weapon, now he's really powerful again. But she doesn't need a Mjolnir. She doesn't need a weapon at all. She's already, you know, probably more powerful than him, so it seemed. And so, you know, I wonder how that's going to affect Endgame. But alright, let's wrap this up and give it a rating. This movie would have been probably a 7, 7.5. And I'm a hard grader, and a 5 means it's a very average movie. It's just like, you know, very average across the board is a 5. Going 1 to 10. But I'd say it would have been about a 7, 7.5 if they didn't make the reasons that she was internally struggling or, you know, overcoming, if they didn't make those internal reasons the fact that men were keeping her back, or if they didn't push those one-liners against men, like, you know, hey sweetie smile, or whatever that line was. It was so shoved into the movie, and people don't act like that. I mean, that's just, I don't know, stuff like that, you know, it builds up once you keep hearing it throughout the movie over and over again. It builds up, and it devalues part of the movie, and you know, they just overstepped, they overcorrected, back to my analogy, in that respect, to empowering women. But I do think this is a good movie for little girls, or women in general who like comics, or like want to support someone in the Marvel universe. I think this is, you know, this was a good overall edition. Just the way they executed it was honestly kind of sexist towards men in some ways, not all. So instead of a 7 or 7.5 as I would have given it, I'm going to give it a 6.5, 6.5. Yeah, I mean, I have this article here. I guess I didn't even talk about it, but it was just going on about someone who is going to give it a 10 out of 10 because, you know, everything about it. And, you know, it's just one of the roots of the problem is just being extreme towards one side. You know, that's not what we want to do. But, hey, leave your comments below. Let's have a discussion. If you liked the movie, didn't like the movie, give your reasons and let me know. But thanks for watching. See you next time.